But I think we can just move on to the next series, Bone Collection from Jun Kirarazaka, who I believe is
This is basically their first manga. Looking them up, they really haven't done a whole lot else.
Yeah, I was going to say, as far as we can tell, like, they seem like a very new artist, so.
Mm-hmm.
So, Lum, tell me what Bone Collection's all about.
Bone Collection is about exorcists, and
your favorite
they're
archetype.
a family of exorcists, and the main character belongs to this family, the Junai family, which is, an elite exorcist family, but he has no talent for exorcism. He's, very bad at it. He doesn't, cast spells well, whatever. His childhood friend is a prodigy. She wasn't born into it, but she's really, really good, and so she always kind of bails him out, shows him up, but she has a crush on him very clearly. Eventually, in the first chapter, he meets Pyra, who kind of, falls from the sky, and the sky, kind of cracks like a mirror, which is very interesting, but she falls, out of the yokai world, I suppose, and Pyra is a Gasha Dekuro. A Gasha Dekuro is the yokai that is made up of the bones, the skeletons of people who die of starvation or in battle. A very ancient yokai, and she's very, very powerful, and she wants to become human, so that's why she went to the human world, and to become human, she needs to get rid of a bunch of the bones in her body. And the main character, Kazami, his only really great skill is to borrow the powers of a yokai, which is a forbidden spell because overusing that power turns you into a yokai permanently, and when he used it as a kid, because he borrowed his friend Kawano-shin's powers, they put Kawano-shin to death, supposedly. And he was also severely punished on top of that. But in this first chapter, he ends up using Pyra's powers, and then from there he learns stuff about Pyra's secret, what she wants, and then they make a deal, basically, that he's going to use up her power in order to turn her human, and then that'll help him with his exorcism stuff too. The Exorcist Association is caught wind that something is amiss, so they seem to be sending, very skilled exorcists down to keep an eye on Kazami, and of course there is some rivalry, jealousy on the part of Reno towards Pyra because of how close she is to Kazami, and then Kazami's brother gets outed for having a swimsuit fetish, so he becomes Pyra's servant, and those are all the pieces that are kind of been put into place right now. Oh, and they also lie about Pyra to get her enrolled in the school. They say that she's Kazami's brother's daughter, and she's 19, even though Kazami's brother is 21. So it's a very flimsy lie, but
I do love how, transparently terrible that lie is, and how
they bribe the principal with cash, so it's okay. That is pretty funny, honestly. But basically, this is kind of Kakaishi light. There's very similar setup to Kakaishi with elements of Ushio and Toro in terms of how, he pulls a spear out of Pyra and his hair grows longer, becomes a little more feral in form. So it's kind of mixing two classic Shonen Sunday series there, I suppose. But I think what really killed this series for me is just the main character is not terribly likable because he's just obsessed with looking good. Even in the flashback where it's exploring how he used Kawano-shin's powers, the motivation for using his powers was because other people called him weak. So that's not really compelling justification, but also he's just such a pervert, and he's always obsessing over boobs, and the way that they get bones from Pyra is that he puts, his hand, inside her body between her breasts, and it's just
or on her thigh.
Or on her thigh. Yeah. So it's just playing around at being an ecchi series on top of, being very derivative of other supernatural action series that have more compelling, hooks and characters, in my opinion. So this one definitely left me a little cold. Like, I don't even think the action is particularly memorable or strong in the series.
Yeah.
There are some funny gags, and I like Pyra. I like her design and motivation. I think she is interesting, but all the other characters, I'm not very fond of. They fall into very kind of been there, done that archetypes, or are legitimately just kind of annoying, especially in the case of Kazami's brother, whose swimsuit fetish is very strange, and then he basically becomes servile to Pyra. And then I want to like Reno a lot, but she immediately just becomes classic tsundere for Kazami and jealous of Pyra, even though there's an interesting character there of she was not born into an exorcist family. She doesn't have the benefit of nepotism like Kazami does, but she worked her way up and became a really great exorcist. That's interesting. I would like to see more about that and her motivation. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't really care that all of her character seems to be assessing around Kazami so far, so that's very disappointing. So, yeah, this definitely left me quite cold, and it just didn't really do a whole lot to impress me or endear me to the characters in a really deep way. There are some moments where Kazami shows genuine kindness and selfishness. There is a good moment in the first chapter where Pyra asks, what if I told you if I was a yokai, would you still have helped me? And Kazami says, yeah, I don't care. If you need help, if we can hang out and be friends, I'll help you, So there's some good qualities to him there, but they're drowned out by the perviness and that being a motivation. In the second chapter, he literally weighs the promise of boobs against the consequences of using Pyra's powers, and the boobs went out in his mind, so.
I at least thought that image was kind of funny, but I also agree that, I don't know, actually, now that I think about it, I don't really feel strongly about the boob jokes because I feel like I feel like most of them are pretty one and done. I don't feel like they linger on any one joke too much.
They repeat it in all 3 chapters so far.
They do,
it's
yeah.
A consistent recurring joke and seems to be very tied to his character and his obsession. And I'm just not that into pervy MCs and also exploitative etchiness.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally agree, and I'm not either. I'm just saying, something about them, I didn't really care for them, but at the same time, I don't know if I could say I've seen worse, because then that's going to bring up the question, well, what is the worst I've seen? And I can't answer that question, Lum. Before you ask me that question again, I can't answer that, because my memory's very shitty. But for me, they were just kind of there. I didn't have too much of a hard time just kind of skimming through those, thankfully, but I don't want to completely dismiss it, because I feel like there is something here, even if parts of it do feel kind of derivative from other series, like you said, but I don't know. I can't see this lasting too long, personally, but I don't know. Maybe I'll be proven wrong. I don't know. Maybe this will become the next Demon Slayer, guys. Calling it right now.
I find that very unlikely.
Only the time will tell, but I at least like the idea of him pulling different bone weapons
that is the
out of her. Yeah.
interesting hook there, right? That's the interesting idea.
Yeah.
And so there's potential there. And I do think it is amusing that they can also play around with that idea. It doesn't almost have to be a crazy weapon. In the 3rd chapter, they pull out a switch from one of her bones.
I thought that was really good.
It's very strange that they have to call a switch a knockoff name. They put a V instead of a W.
A switch.
But they can say Smash Brothers. So very weird what they can dance around in terms of mentioning directly and what they cannot, but I think it is interesting that they can play around with having her bones be used as different kind of tools instead of just purely combat weapons.
Yeah. Personally, I thought the bone sniper rifle almost had me, but they don't really, he doesn't get to use it for more than like 2 pages technically. And even then it was like one double page spread. So he didn't use it for too long.
It was a good design at the very least.
No, it looked awesome. I just wish he used it more was the thing.
Yeah.
And I guess that's probably the only reason why I'm even thinking about continuing to read more of this is because of Pyra and her bone powers or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
She's easily like the most interesting thing about this series. Otherwise, I really couldn't give a shit less. Like, I think without her, I would not even be thinking about reading this anymore.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, I mean, I'm not really dating the main character myself either. I mean, it's a shame because I think there is something good in there with him, you know, being kind to others regardless of whether they're human or yokai. I think there's a very likable, very good character trait.
Yeah, I mean, it makes him stand out in the world since the other exorcists are all about just destroy the yokai, but then he finds, no, there is a middle ground, like I can befriend them. So that is an interesting idea that puts him in conflict with other exorcists. That level of kindness and empathy he can extend, but it's just unfortunate that it's drowned out by more negative aspects of his character.
Yeah. I jokingly mentioned Demon Slayer before, and I'm not necessarily saying this is the exact same thing, but I don't know. I felt like that was a very Tanjiro-esque kind of character trait, at least.
I mean, that is definitely Tanjiro's. I mean, that is his defining quality. Is that is very empathetic, especially towards demons. Whereas the other demon slayers are like, no, they're demons. We gotta destroy them. And Tanjiro, he extends kindness to his enemies, even if they've done pretty bad things. At least up to a point.
Yeah.
There's some people he can't forgive, but he does feel bad and sympathy for those that he understands have been suffering as well.
Mm-hmm, yeah. I feel like if they were to maybe focus on that a bit more, I'd probably like the MC a bit more, but as it stands, I don't really care about him too much, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, outside of that, I think the series can have funny gags. As weird as his brother's swimsuit fetish was, I can't say it wasn't surprising.
It was surprising, I'll give it that.
I was not expecting that, so I thought that was pretty funny. You have to give him a reason to, not totally rat his brother out, and as far as those reasons go...
I mean, I like that Pyra blackmails him and manipulates him into being her servant so that his secret doesn't get ratted out. I mean, again, Pyra's character and personality I quite enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
I do also think that it is, in concept, a funny subversion to have, the seemingly straight-laced, mature older brother type actually have a secret, fetish that he's hiding. So, in concept, that is an amusing idea in execution. I just found it a little tiring.
That's fair. But I don't know, yeah, I don't want to completely give it away, but at the same time, I think we could both agree that Bone Collection is probably the weakest out of this round so far.
I think unquestionably, because I enjoy the other two quite a bit. Then this one, I am not enjoying a whole lot.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm willing to read a bit more of it, but I could see this being something I could possibly drop within another couple of chapters or so, maybe. They are sending somebody from the Exorcist Association or whatever, so I'm somebody that Pyra knows, or at least it sounds familiar to her. So I'm kind of interested in seeing where that goes.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these beats remind me of Kakaishi. That's another problem, is that, yeah, this happened in Kakaishi too. Someone from the Exorcist organization was sent to keep an eye on the main characters because they're suspicious or they have their own machinations and stuff.
That's probably my thing too, is I've seen a little Kakaishi, but I've never read it. I do want to get to it at some point, though. I've heard good things about it.
It is very good.